a ceasefire hostage release deal has been proposed to Israel. This was brokered by Egypt and Qatar, with Hamas moderating some demands under military pressure. Netanyahu now needs to decide if he will accept the partial agreement, which could save lives in the short term, but risk undermining its broader strategic aims. Let's get a word on this from Jonathan Sacerdoti, journalist and broadcaster. Jonathan, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
These sort of ceasefire proposals do sort of come and go from time to time. Does this one carry more authenticity or possibility than others?
Well, the official Israeli position is at the moment that Israel is consistent and hasn't changed its position, that it wants and demands the release of all 50 hostages in accordance with the principles set by the cabinet for ending the war. But of course, there has been that news that Hamas apparently accepted the proposal that was put to them by the Egyptians and the Qataris, and that was for something much more like the Witkoff plan, which Steve Witkoff had devised and been negotiating back in July before Britain and 25 other countries scuppered those negotiations altogether by effectively promising the Palestinians everything they wanted without any concessions, and that stalled those negotiations. So since Israel then said that it was planning to occupy the Gaza Strip and to conquer Gaza City, of course a chorus of criticism from around the world, but that appears to have unstuck the negotiations, and that caused Hamas to go back to discussing the possibility of a ceasefire and releasing some of the hostages. So in a sense, some are saying that that does prove what Israel has been saying all along, that it's only military pressure or even the threat of military pressure increasing, which is going to force Hamas to do anything. They're not in the business of making deals, sticking to deals or releasing hostages unless they get something out of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, we've talked a lot about Ukraine in the last couple of days and on the show earlier as well, Jonathan. There is a sort of an inevitable synergy, isn't there, between all of these areas of war where unpalatable things are proposed. Conceding land to Putin. Why would anyone concede land to someone who'd invaded you? And similarly with this, the position that Israel will forever be stuck with is, do you negotiate with a terrorist organisation?
That's right, and of course Israel has always negotiated with terrorist organisations because it's a country which actually prioritises and considers it very important to release those who've been kidnapped. In the past it's predominantly been soldiers, but actually in this case it's extraordinary, not just because of the number of people being so high, but because so many of them were civilians. I mean, don't forget that these vile jihadist barbarians actually kidnapped a baby, they kidnapped a Holocaust survivor, so everything from under 1 year old to over 80 years old. Many of those people were actually saved. They were exchanged for Palestinians who were in prison in Israel, many of them on life sentences for terrorist suicide bombings or involvement in suicide bombings and other terrorism. So this has been a very hard thing for Israel to do, this kind of negotiation, but unfortunately it's a country that has a lot of experience of that, so they do tend to know the enemy when they're engaging in these kind of discussions.
What is your assessment then as to where this is likely to go? What's your gut telling you on this, Jonathan, where we might be in 7 days' time on this proposal?
Well, I can't really say, and I don't think any of us can. We have to wait and see, and that's because Hamas, even when they say they're going to do something like this, often even only say that to stall for time. If that could stop Israel conquering Gaza or starting its operations in Gaza City, then that might be one of the reasons they're doing that. They may then drag their feet, change their mind a bit, add some new conditions and things like that. And at the same time, just because the negotiating arm of Hamas, that is to say those who are not in Gaza, living lives of luxury in Qatar, being put up there by the Qataris, if they agree to something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Palestinian terrorists on the ground in Gaza are going to actually comply with the deal that's made. So there's many things that could go wrong, even from this point of hearing these rumours. And indeed, Israel is under a lot of pressure from both sides. On the one side, there are those people who've been protesting in the streets, demanding that really at any cost, Israel does any deal it can to save as many hostages as possible, even effectively if that means surrender. And on the other side, Benjamin Netanyahu has to contend with groups like the Tikva Family Forum, families of hostages who are on the other side of that debate, and people within his own coalition who say, no, keep going, absolute victory is the only way to win this war, and if that means that we risk some of those hostages' lives, then so be it. So very difficult decision for him to make.
Jonathan, thank you for your time, sir. Really appreciate that. Jonathan Sacerdoti, the broadcaster and journalist. Thank you to him. That's that phrase, Gordian knot, isn't it, which kind of slightly underplays the severity of it, but you take the point. Is there ever an end to this one, in the same way as we debate this one on Ukraine as well?